The underground miner. Most people picture a miner as one guy with a pickaxe and a headlamp. But the underground miner is the person who spends an entire working life somewhere the sun never reaches. A mile of rock stacked over his head, breathing air that has to be pumped down to him through the dark. There's no window, no weather, no sense of time. Just the seam of coal in front of him and the low grind of machinery echoing off stone. The work itself is a war against the space he's given. In a low seam, and plenty of American coal seams run just 30 to 42 inches high, he can't stand up. He spends the whole shift on his knees, on his back, or crawling dragging tools through a gap barely taller than a kitchen chair is wide. Every breath pulls in fine coal dust, the kind that never fully leaves the lungs. That dust is what causes coal workers pneumoconiosis, black lung, a disease that scars the lungs permanently and still kills thousands of former miners decades after they've left the mine. Nobody trains for this in a classroom and walks in ready. It's years of apprenticing under older miners who've already lost hearing, lung capacity, and friends to roof falls. You learn to read the sound of the roof settling, to feel a shift in the airflow that means the ventilation's failing, to notice the smell before an alarm ever sounds. That knowledge is bought with fear, and it's the only thing that keeps a crew alive down there. And here's the scale of it. Roughly 5 million people still work in coal mining worldwide, hauling out the fuel that heats homes and forges the steel in the buildings above them. The underground miner does it with the earth itself pressing down on him, trading his body, one shift at a time, for the energy the rest of the world burns without ever thinking about where it came from. The roof bolter. Before anyone else can safely work a fresh stretch of tunnel, the roof bolter has to walk in under rock that nothing is holding up yet. Roof falls, the roof of the mine collapsing, have historically been the single leading cause of death in underground coal mining. His entire job is to stop that from happening, which means he's the one who deliberately puts himself under the most dangerous ceiling in the mine before it's been made safe. He runs a roof bolting machine that drills straight up into the strata and installs long steel bolts, commonly 4 to 6 feet long, anchored with resin or an expansion shell. The trick isn't just holding up loose rock. Those bolts clamp the separate layers of stone above him together so they act like a single thick beam instead of a stack of loose slabs waiting to peel away. Get the spacing wrong, or miss a hidden fracture, and tons of rock come down in the half second it takes to blink. Getting good at it is a slow physical education. He learns to read the roof, to spot the hairline cracks, the drummy hollow sound that means rock is already separated overhead, the water seep that signals a weak layer. It's repetitive, deafening, and relentless. Drilling, bolting, testing, moving up a few feet and doing it again, shift after shift, always at the exposed edge where the protection ends and the raw rock begins. The payoff is quiet and almost invisible, which is exactly why it's underrated. When a longwall crew or a continuous miner operator works a section without a second thought, it's because the roof bolter already went in first and made the ceiling hold. Every safe tunnel in a modern mine is a monument to somebody who stood under it when it wasn't safe yet, and trusted his own bolts with his life. The longwall machine operator. Picture a single steel cutting machine grinding its way across a wall of coal that stretches 800 to 1,500 feet from end to end, longer than 4 football fields laid tip to tip. That's a longwall, one of the most productive mining systems ever built, and the longwall operator is the person who runs it. In a single shift, a longwall can carve out thousands of tons of coal, feeding it onto a conveyor in a continuous river of black. The heart of it is the shearer, a machine with massive rotating drums studded with cutting picks that shave coal off the face as it travels back and forth. Above the operator's head runs a line of 100 or more hydraulic roof supports, giant steel shields that hold the roof up over the whole working area. And here's the part that makes it terrifying. As the machine advances, those shields advance with it, and the roof behind them is allowed to collapse on purpose. The operator works in a moving pocket of safety, with a controlled cave-in following a few feet behind him the entire shift. Learning to run, one is learning to manage a machine that could crush a person instantly if it's misjudged. The operator has to keep the shearer cutting, the shields advancing in sequence, the conveyor loaded, and the dust and methane in check, all at once, in noise loud enough to cause permanent hearing loss, in a haze of coal dust thick enough to blot out his own lamp. A single jam or a shield set wrong can stop the whole multi-million-dollar operation cold, or worse. What makes the job awe-inspiring is the sheer force he commands. One longwall operator, running one machine, can outproduce entire crews of old-school pick-and-shovel miners 100 times over. He stands inside a slow-motion demolition of the earth, guiding it, keeping it just controlled enough that the mountain comes apart on his terms instead of its own. The blaster. There's a moment right before a blast when the blaster is the only person allowed to be anywhere near thousands of pounds of explosives, and everyone else has been cleared back to a safe distance, waiting on him. Whether he's bringing down a wall of rock on a surface mine or breaking hard ground underground, his job is to turn solid stone into rubble on command without turning himself into a casualty. The work is precise in a way that looks almost surgical. He drills a pattern of holes, then loads them with explosives, often ANFO, a mix of ammonium nitrate and fuel oil that's the workhorse of the mining world, and wires each charge to a detonator. The real skill is in the timing. The holes don't all fire at once. They're set off in a sequence separated by milliseconds, so the rock breaks in a controlled wave that heaves the material exactly where he wants it. Get the delays or the pattern wrong, and you get fly rock hurled hundreds of feet, or ground that shakes buildings, or a shot that underbreaks and traps the coal. The nightmare word in his trade is misfire, a charge that doesn't go off. Now there's live explosive buried in a pile of broken rock, and someone has to deal with it. Blasters spend years earning certification and learning to respect that risk absolutely, because the ones who get casual are the ones who don't get old. And when it works, the result is staggering. In a single detonation lasting less than a second, he can shift more earth than 100 workers could move by hand in a week. He holds the power to reshape the ground itself in his hands, and the entire mine trusts him to do it, over and over, and always walk away. The continuous miner operator. While a blaster breaks rock apart with explosives, the continuous miner operator does it with brute mechanical force and no blasting at all. He runs the continuous mining machine, a low, tank-like beast with a giant rotating drum on the front, covered in tungsten carbide cutting bits that chews directly into the coal face and rips it loose in a non-stop stream. In room and pillar mining, this is the machine that actually carves the rooms out of the seam, leaving pillars of coal behind to hold the roof. The core of the job is controlling a machine that eats coal faster than almost anything short of a Longwall. The cutting drum tears into the face, gathering arms sweep the broken coal back onto a conveyor inside the machine, and it all pours out behind onto shuttle cars or a belt. In a modern operation, he often runs it by remote control from off to the side, because the space right in front of and around that machine, the red zone, is where operators have been crushed against the rib when a machine lurched or pinned them. Standing clear isn't caution, it's survival. Mastering it takes a real feel for the seam. He has to read where the coal ends and the rock begins, keep the cut clean, watch the roof he's exposing with every pass, and keep the machine from overloading or throwing sparks into an atmosphere that might hold methane. It's constant, and the tunnel grows in front of him, foot by foot, while the dangers grow with it. The quiet marvel of it is the raw output. A continuous miner more than earns its name. It doesn't stop to reload or blast, it just keeps advancing, and one operator can drive a heading deep into a coal seam in the time it used to take a crew a whole shift. He's the tip of the spear, opening up the mine, one relentless bite at a time. The Timberman. Long before hydraulic shields and steel roof bolts, the thing standing between a miner and the weight of the mountain was wood, and the timberman was the craftsman who set it. It's one of the oldest roles in mining, and in smaller operations and older seams, it never fully went away. He's the one who props up the roof and the ribs by hand, building supports out of raw timber in spaces too tight or too awkward for a machine to reach. His craft is deceptively skilled. He sets vertical timber props under the roof, wedges them tight so they're already carrying load, and builds cribs, squared stacks of timber, laid log cabin style, in the spots that need heavy support. Each piece has to be cut and placed so it takes the strain evenly. A prop set even slightly off can split or kick out under pressure and let the roof come down. He's reading the same warning signs the roof bolter reads, the cracks, the groans, the dust sifting from above, and answering them with nothing but wood, wedges, and judgment. The toll is written on his body. It's heavy, repetitive lifting in cramped, crouched positions, hauling timber through tunnels and muscling it into place, shift after shift. There's no fast way to learn it. It comes from years alongside older timbermen, absorbing which timber to trust, how tight to wedge, when a support is talking and about to fail. Wood, unlike steel, gives an audible warning before it breaks, and a good timberman learns to listen for it. What makes the role quietly awe-inspiring is how much faith rides on that craft. Whole crews work under roof held up by timber, a single man cut and set by hand. He's the living link to the way every mine was once supported, the human being who stands against the weight of the earth, armed with little more than the trees that grew above it. The fire boss. Here's a job with a name that sounds like a legend, and a history that earns it. The fire boss is the person who goes into the mine first, before the crew, before the machines start, into the dark and the silence, to find out whether it's safe for anyone else to follow. The name comes from a genuinely terrifying old practice. In gassy mines, a man would crawl in ahead of everyone, lying flat on the ground, and deliberately burn off pockets of accumulated methane with a flame on a long pole before the day's work could begin. Modern methane won't announce itself, which is the whole danger. Methane, the miners called it fire damp, is invisible and odorless. And when it builds to somewhere between 5 and 15% of the air, a single spark turns the mine into a bomb. So the fire boss conducts the pre-shift examination, required by law before any crew enters. He walks the workings, testing the air, checking gas readings, inspecting the ventilation and the roof, and he signs his name to the results. If he says a section's clear, people bet their lives on his word. It's a role you only reach after years underground, because you can't examine for dangers you've never learned to recognize. He has to understand ventilation, gas behavior, roof conditions, and the specific moods of his particular mine, where gas tends to collect, which airways run weak, where trouble starts. Historically, he'd read a flame safety lamp, watching the flame stretch and change to reveal methane the eye can't see. Today, he carries electronic monitors, but the responsibility is identical, and that responsibility is enormous. Every shift, an entire crew walks into the ground trusting that one person checked it and found it safe. The fire boss carries the whole mine's survival on his signature. The first one in, the one who decides whether the darkness ahead is workable or waiting to kill. The mine rescue technician, everyone else in the mine is trying to avoid disaster. The mine rescue technician runs straight into it when there's been an explosion, a fire, a flood, or a collapse, when the mine has become a death trap and everyone's sane is running out. This is the person who straps on breathing apparatus and walks in, through smoke and rubble and toxic air, to find whoever's still alive and bring back whoever isn't. The reality of the work is almost unbearable. He goes into atmospheres with no breathable oxygen, wearing a self-contained breathing apparatus that gives him a few hours of air and no more, into passages that may be on fire, or filled with explosive gas, or blocked by fallen roof. The greatest fear is the secondary explosion, the mine that already blew once and is primed to blow again while the team is inside it. He advances into that, methodically, testing the air ahead every step, restoring ventilation, fighting fires underground, searching a shattered mine foot by foot for survivors. Nobody is forced into this. Most mine rescue technicians are trained volunteers, working miners who choose to carry the burden on top of their regular jobs. They drill constantly, through smoke-filled training galleries, in full gear, running the same emergency scenarios again and again, because in a real event there's no time to think. Only time to have already practiced it 1,000 times. That preparation is bought with hours the rest of us will never see. And this is where the awe lands hardest. The mine rescue technician is the answer to the worst day a mining community can have. The person who, when a whole town is standing at the mine mouth praying, actually goes down to bring their people home. He accepts freely that the place he's walking into is the place that just killed someone. There may be no braver job in the entire industry. That's the roster. 8 roles that together keep the coal moving, and more often than anyone above ground realizes, keep each other alive. From the miner crawling a 30-inch seam to the rescue technician walking into a mine that's already exploded once, every one of them trades something of themselves for the fuel the rest of the world burns without a second thought. If this gave you a new respect for the people who work in the dark, consider subscribing. There's a whole world of hard, hidden jobs still to cover. And if you've done any of this work yourself, or you've ever thought you had it in you to, drop a comment below and tell us which role you'd take. We read them.